Hey chocolate friends, for this bar bits video this week I was inspired by this bar from cacao out of New Zealand. If you read carefully, this is a milk chocolate bar made with deer milk. Now, the thing I want to talk about is I want to tell you a little bit about a story about deer in New Zealand, because deer are not native to New Zealand. First, I'll tell you about this. The Maori name of New Zealand is Aotearoa, and that is also the base for this. Eo means world. Aotearoa means land of the clouds, land above the clouds. So part of the same word part. Started by Thomas Wright in Auckland. He does have Maori heritage. And this one has unique. This is the first time that I've ever had a deer milk bar. And I know that deer are not native to New Zealand. So what the heck are deer doing in New Zealand? So let me tell you, because it's kind of an interesting story. So in the late 1800s, you had all these doctor/scientists, gentlemen scientists traveling around the world, colonizing different areas of the world. And they thought it was a great idea to bring plants and animals and move them to different places and farm them in different places, and didn't really understand the impact of all their actions were having on the environments that they were moving into. A lot of times it was really devastating actions. Species went extinct, traditional things were lost. They had big problems because of what they were doing. One of these things was deer. So as they colonized New Zealand, or Aotearoa, they wanted to hunt. So they brought in deer. They brought in a few different kinds of deer. One of them they brought in was the red deer. The red deer is the one that loved New Zealand. New Zealand is lovely, grassy, pastoral, mountainous, perfect for deer. No natural predators. In other places where deer are, they have natural predators. Cougars, mountain lions, bears. Like, there are natural predators that will keep the population from exploding. In New Zealand, no natural predators. So they brought in these deer, and by the 1920, the deer had gone crazy. The deer loved New Zealand. They bred like crazy and were spreading all over New Zealand. They were affecting the environment. They were infecting the other farmers that were there. They were affecting their farms. And so in the 1920s, they had something called the Deer Menace Conference. How to decide how to deal with this deer problem. So they started a culling program. Started off, they were culling 8,000 deer a year. By the 1960s, they were culling up to 80,000 deer a year. And there were still thousands and thousands of deer around the country. They were late 60s, they started culling, and they were paying for the deer. They would pay for the pelts, the meat, the antlers, all of that as well. By the late 1960s, they were culling them by helicopter. So these guys would go on helicopter and either shoot them from the plane or jump on them from the plane. All very exciting. By the 1970s, they had decided to start farming deer. Why? They can use the meat. Deer meat is called venison. There was a market for velvet antlers. So the antlers are kind of like furry on the outside. I feel like velvet. Velvet antlers, there was a market for that in Asia. And now we come to deer milk. So deer milk is a product that you can get from red deer, which is where these come from. These come from Pammy red deer. And they're using it in this chocolate. So they're taking something that was invasive, still is invasive in the country of New Zealand, and using it in the cacao in a better way, hopefully helping the people of New Zealand more than it's harming them. There has been some science into investigating unique properties of deer milk that may or may not turn out to be beneficial to humans, but this was a really interesting bar. So this was one of the first batches that he made. He's changed the formulation a little bit. This bar was super soft. If you came to my tastings in the spring, you know that this bar was super soft. He wanted it a little bit to have a little more snap to it, so he's formulated a little bit different, but still has deer milk in it. So an interesting inclusion. That's how deer got to New Zealand. That's how deer milk got into this bar from New Zealand. So yeah, interesting story. There's always an interesting story behind chocolate. I swear I can find an interesting story behind every single chocolate bar that I taste. And that's it for this week's Bar Bits video. I hope you learned something. I hope you found it interesting. And if you ever get a chance to taste deer milk chocolate, or if you've had some other kind of interesting milk chocolate, I want to hear about it. Let me know in the comments. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time when we talk all things chocolate.